What are the kinds of, yes.
Yeah, we work cheap.
All right, I'll add that.
Don't write that down.
Yeah, don't worry.
Should we say economical?
Cost effective.
Cost effective, yes.
You know, as it relates to the diverse community, there are so many people here who are either working professionals or retired professionals who've chosen to reside here. It doesn't matter the expertise that you're looking for. You mentioned somebody in Cleveland that had the, you know, there's film industry or not, you can find a discipline, a craft, they're here. It doesn't matter what it is.
Okay, that's a good point, yes. I like that fact that it's a diversity in age, too.
Yeah.
Okay, you had your hand up for a while, I'm sorry.
Thank you. It's small, but yet there's still some culture where we have really great restaurants. There's lots of great shops. I think anyone would enjoy coming into this area.
Okay.
Surprising culture too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people feel like they've discovered something when they come here. And I would add to that artisan culture. So the craftsmanship, I think that is appreciated in this region and celebrated in this region, whether it's food or furniture building or.
Yeah, and I think it sort of surprises people from California when they come here, and I've often heard Traverse City called a sort of, a little kind of comparable to Carmel or something, it's just that kind of an atmosphere.
A geography point, you have to want to come here. It is not on the way to anyone. Yeah, seriously, it's off 75.
It's true.
You're going to go up the West Coast, yeah. So it is that off.
That keeps away the riffraff.
What?
That keeps away the riffraff.
Well, yeah.
Okay, yes, Nancy.
I wanted to connect several ideas. One of them, with the artisan culture, it's a lot of innovation because of our lack of infrastructure. We have to be innovative or creative. And I want to speak to what Scott was saying earlier. It's almost a venue for new trends that are coming up, which, dumpster diving or like these weird things that younger people are doing, these trends that are coming up.
Okay.
I see it as a venue for trends.
Say unique trends here.
Yeah.
Okay. Other thoughts on strengths?
I think one of the strengths, I don't know how you word it, but with the internet and high-speed connections to the web, there really isn't a lot, that we're not disconnected anymore. We're not just up in the middle of nowhere. You can get everything up to Vimeo in 10 minutes, whatever.
Okay.
So that kind of levels the playing field a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, like that in the airport. We have an international airport.
Oh, you do? Whoa, okay. I didn't know that.
Like the infrastructure, we do have, obviously have sound stages, but we do have a wall of hotels and restaurants.
Yes. Okay. Other thoughts? All right, are we ready to move on? Now we go to the weaknesses.
I got one more.
You got one more before
More
you?
solid seating.
Oh, okay,
Very
great.
distinct. And actually a little too much water.
I'm with you.
Summer, right?
Okay, if you were shooting the first Die Hard, you really wanted to find some winter. And we all heard about how they had to truck snow in because the winter wasn't up to par. But yeah, definitely, there are people who want to shoot winter. And you can't find that everywhere. So it's a definite plus.
I know we talked about natural resources, but there's also a high diversity of resources within a small geographic area. There's places where we can make it look like the Sierra Desert and then drive 5 miles and have it look like an upland Canadian hardwood forest, and then we can have it look like the ocean, and all within a so there's a great diversity within a small geographic area that I think plays well.
Well, I'll just say it that way and then we'll work that in on the other page. In a small area. And for sure that's got to be near and dear to any producer's heart who's got to drag a crew around behind him or her. So, absolutely. All right, now we get to, who's it? Jeb?
Yeah.
Weaknesses. Okay, now we're doing exactly the opposite. What are the things that make you crazy about trying to think of this region in terms of building an industry here?
The perception that there isn't anybody here that can do the
Yeah,
work.
It's
The
urban
perception.
myth of up north.
Well, people's complete ignorance about the region. I mean, that people from other places think Michigan is one big Detroit.
Yeah.
I mean, I just was watching some footage from the Great Race today where I had 2 or 3 people within interviews on this project that I'm working on from states that aren't that far away, you know, from North Carolina, from Virginia, saying, I just thought Michigan was one big Flint. I thought it was one big Detroit.
Yeah,
By the way, Forbes magazine listed Detroit as the worst city in the nation again.
Yes.
Well, we're the best at something.
yeah, like it or not, we are all hooked to Detroit. I mean, we all have skin in that game too. You know how Detroit rises or falls, because we are all known by that city. That's who we are as far as a lot of people know. Yes.
I think that this is going to touch on a lot of stuff we're going to say and what we did say. I wanted, the word is disconnected, but like we have cool groups like this. We have West Michigan Film Video Lines. We have things. But when somebody from the outside comes here to get something done, they don't want to like, oh, I'm going to go live there for 3 months and find the cool guy that actually can do the job I want to do. So it's hard to kind of, it's a little bit, goes both ways for us to say that oh, they're really ignorant about the talent maybe in the area when, where do they go? You know, do they Google, you know, Michigan film talent? It's very hard. And so like I feel like there's just a huge gap there, you know, I hate to say it, a one-stop shop, you know, or something reliable. So sorry to ramble, I don't know how to put that succinctly yet, but a highly,
Representation.
yeah. Highly,
And, you know, in this,
Film office is serving your interests?
not really.
Well, I really get what you're saying, that you're talking about outsiders. You know, people who don't live here, who don't share your community, who don't all know you by reputation and whatnot. So if they don't know you, how do they find you?
Right.
There's a big communication issue right there for anyone who doesn't live here. That's huge. So good point.
do we have enough awareness of how important solidarity can be for us? That's the thing I struggle with this group. It's like, you know, what else can we do to come together and make ourselves strong?
How would we summarize that?
Solidarity is, do we have, I mean, yeah, we know each other and but I think there's a much bigger community here than, well, certainly there's a much bigger community that was here than I was aware of, and I'm still learning who's out there. Mm-hmm. So it continues, and how do we figure out, how do we take a really solid inventory in the first place?
Are you talking kind of like the ability for us to do things on our own and say screw the outside? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I'm saying just so that we all are aware of who is actually here and what is actually happening. We don't have a solid inventory of our own resources, I don't think.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. No inventory of resources.
By that, I mostly mean talent, people.
Well, you could say that, and then, of course, there's the other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, who can actually do post, who can run a camera, who can do just about anything.
Yep.
You have
Who's got a
people-
camera? And
Also-
what kind?
Yeah.
Also, just the, you know, like restaurants who've supported a film crew before and who kind of know what the cadence of that is, and lodging facilities that have supported productions. Having all these ancillary businesses that have at least enough of a sense of how the industry works to be a little more friendly. And,
That was what our business was about, and I would say is about, which is, you know, helping communities figure out how they can actually organize the information about their community so that when you have a film crew come in, they know who's willing to stay open 24 hours and do dry cleaning so that the crew costumes are ready next day. You know, if you don't know that kind of stuff, you're kind of flat-footed when the producer asks you for that.
Jamie, you had something you seemed like you want to
Oh,
say.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people who have been displaced, actually, or who have left Michigan because we did have the incentive, and then it dried up, and then I had a bunch of friends who did both talent and crew who just left. It's
So
kind of sad.
there's
We had a bunch of
it's the lack of trust in the process.
That, you're really hitting on an important thing.
We also don't have a four-year institution here.
What
When
does
you
that
talk
mean?
about students and you talk about young people, the closest four-year institution is Ferris in Big Rapids or Sault Ste. Marie.
Does that mean there's no film program here? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no college level program.
Yeah.
There's a high school level.
There's an internationally renowned, or high school, in grades, or
Yeah.
high school here, high school age.
Wait, there's one more strength that we didn't mention. There's a huge amount of pop and stuff back there. I know there's a bar right across the room, but if you're just needing to drink something, that cooler is full of stuff. Thank you.
Resourceful people,
Yes, a resource.
generous.
Yeah.
What Dan brought up brings up a question in my mind, and if this is too related, then just skip it, but how much are we building a film community out of the resources that are here, and how much are we inviting an industry that's already established from somewhere else to come in and tap into those resources?
Two
And,
different things, isn't it?
well, potentially, I mean, they could potentially work together, but I guess I'm curious about
Let's
that.
hold that for opportunity. We
Okay.
bring that back when we, don't forget it, because I probably won't.
Okay, and well, and then the other one, and I'll bookmark this too, is this, I'm a documentary filmmaker primarily, and so I'm wondering if if we're even including that in the conversation. It
Of
sounds
course.
like we're talking about Hollywood, we're talking about narrative films with big budgets
Well,
only.
the thing about the motion media incentive is that it is a huge all-encompassing kind of thing, except for commercials. Go figure. But, you know, it isn't just film. It's digital gaming, it's music, it's all the things that generate and sustain the film industry. And we only use film because it's too long to keep saying digital media, blah, 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 film is the shorthand word now. Because, do you still use film?
I wish I did, but no, I sold my last 35mm camera a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's probably a doorstop today. I have a thought, and I think it's kind of umbrellas of everything that you're cooking up here, and that is more of a suggestion, is that we need to think like Hollywood. Think like these producers in Hollywood before we bite ourselves in the tail around here, because you got to picture it from their point of view. As arrogant as they may appear, they have a very systematic approach at this stuff. Even in LA, not everybody gets hired. It's like, if you could be right in the hotbed of this thing, and if Tom's a great cinematographer, he might work for one person maybe a couple times or forever, but then the other guy goes, hey, well, no, we're not going to take him, we'll take you. So even in the hotbed, it's a problem. So imagine bringing that level of whatever comfort they have amongst the people that they often work with here. We're not even on the map. So that's the battle. Now, so we have to think in terms of Hollywood, and how do they perceive our credibility, our organizational skills, and our track record. And once we see it from their point of view, we might have a much better crack at offering them what they want. One thing for sure is to not be wishy-washy, to not oversell ourselves. If you're not a kick-ass cinematographer, but you say you are, and you get busted, that ruins it for everybody. If you're not a kick-ass editor, but you say you are, boom. So we have to be really careful that we are honest with ourselves and to each other, and especially to Hollywood, when it comes to our own virtues. Seriously. Right. Otherwise, we're all going down a spin toilet.
Right, well, and that's a very good point. You can't get over-eager about our level of competitive ability at this point. We are still building.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah. I saw a hand over here. Was it you guys that you wanted to make? Okay, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that there's a big lack of opportunities here. And so for many of us, to get more experience, more legitimate experience, we have to leave to get that experience, to bring it back, which is a big challenge.
And then, to follow on that, I think one of the kind of overarching problems is there's really no industry here. I mean, there's a bunch of people that have done some things, done a lot of things, have done a few things, want to do more, but because there's no industry, if job A is over, you get hired by somebody, job A is over, you have to go back to your job at the bank to make a living. When you go to a bigger market, Detroit is bigger, yeah, but LA, okay, I lived in LA for 20 years, so I've got that perspective. The freelance pool is immense. And when you're done with one job with this guy, you go and work with this guy, and then you go work with this guy, and then you come back around to the first guy again. Here, a job happens, you work with it, you work on it, and then the next job is 6 months later.
If.
So so you can't rely on that.
Right.
And even in Detroit, there used to be a very good advertising production kind of thing.
Right.
Where there were always, commercials going on, so that. Yeah, so Jim Handy, and then after that, there was Ultramedia, and then Castori, and, the advertising that was there would sustain a community, and that's mostly what they did. But the reason why, when the incentive happened, the reason why the vast majority of the work went to Detroit was because there are people there that have actual experience.
And the infrastructure.
And the infrastructure because of the commercial industry
Right.
that's there. And what's still hanging on by their fingernails now is still there.
Right.
And that's where the big jobs and big work goes, because you have people you can make a phone call to and tomorrow they show up, as opposed to like here, it's like I know maybe a third of the people in this room. We need to do a better job of hiring each other for our own projects so that we can sustain an industry that, so when the next big job comes from out of town, we can say, yeah, we do have experience. And another thing, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but another thing that when it comes to hiring people and hiring, when you hire a crew or when you recommend somebody, like Rich was saying, your reputation is on the line when you recommend somebody.
Yeah.
And so if I work with somebody locally and they say, yeah, I've done all this stuff and whatever, and then a producer from LA comes and says, hey, I need somebody that does, well, I have to think hard. It's like, does that person really know what they're talking about? Mm-hmm. And because I haven't had a chance to work with them yet, I don't really know. So am I going to recommend them, or am I going to suggest my friends that are in LA that I can bring out here?
Yeah, and that kind of takes us back to the fact that there's no communication, no good system to really find out about the people who want to maybe start off as a PA and work their way up. I don't know if you have training programs here for that.
Well,
Fits and starts,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, there's a little something happening with,
Public
up
access,
north
center.
media.
Rich puts on workshops,
Yep.
NMC occasionally, the community college, but it is, Interlochen does the same thing. It's fits and starts, but there's no cohesiveness to that.
Yeah.
As a little trivia, Bill made me think of it. In the heyday of the film industry in Detroit, which was all cars, in the heyday of that, there was, I think, 2 decades almost, they shot more film than Hollywood did for almost 20 years. So just as a perspective about industry, talk about the crews that were available
Yeah.
down there. They were shooting film like mad.
Yeah.
More than Hollywood.
The
Seriously.
irony just kills you.
Yeah.
It really does.
I
Yes.
just wanted to jump back to a point. I think it's really important, since we have a lot of folks here, to thank Dan Kelly for making.
Mr.
He's made more headway in trying to bring this community together and to get us to know each other than I haven't been around that long, but than anybody has in the past. And I think it's really important that we recognize match that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did.
Thanks, David.
Sorry, I didn't say that at the beginning.
Such a swell guy.
Related to that, I've asked you to sign a sheet. Did everybody get to sign that sign? Where is that?
It's right here. It seems like it went all the way around the room. Has everybody got their, John Heck got this, or your?
Yeah, because when I get back home and type all this up, I'll be happy to send the email list.
Versus tone of flesh.
And then Dan, you can keep people on.
Right. Well, the other thing that just comes to mind with that is I had a mind-boggling experience. Anybody who's read the blog recently about how I went and talked to the senator and the rep, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But those guys really, again, seemingly well-meaning guys don't really have any kind of idea what it is that we want or need at all.
Right, will you hold that?
Yeah, I will, but that's a
opportunities too?
weakness. We just don't have a connection to our, the power structure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so lack of a lobbying arm.
Lack even of a connection at all.
Credibility
Yeah.
that speaks to the culture, right?
Okay, that's a very important point.
Hey, Deb,
Yeah.
when did the legislature actually approve the incentives? Was it just a couple weeks ago, or has it not been voted on yet, or?
Well, no, in
they have to-
2011.
Did they have to just vote again recently?
I don't know.
Yeah, because Governor Snyder came out and said in the last week or so that they thought that the money was better spent dollar for
Oh,
dollar.
you're talking about the 25 million?
25 million last year, or 50 million this year, but it sounded like they were going to make a decision within this month.
Well, that's for this,
Yeah.
that's for the budget that's
Yeah.
coming up. Now, the thing is that the last time they did the budget, they did it for 2 years. That's the way Snyder wanted it. And so now we're looking at the 25 million is coming up for, is that 2014, I think? When everything sort of starts over again, because the way we have it set up now is that the legislature has to allot this money. It's not a tax incentive anymore. It's a grant program. So the legislature decides, basically, I mean, they could say, well, we're not giving you any money this year.
It sounds like they decide it every year now. Yeah.
Well, unless they do it every 2 years, which is
Yeah.
the way the governor wanted it. So now, whether he gets elected again in 2014, so we keep playing the legislature the way we are, is up for grabs right now. We don't know. But it's different, you know.
So it's set for 50 million, that's a done deal for this year?
It's set through this year, yes,
Yeah,
and
okay.
then the next allotment is for 2014, and that's where the governor made his recommendation of 25 million. He cut it in half. And
Okay.
the only reason we had 50 was because Randy Richardville, who is the head of the Senate, who also has some kids who are in the film industry, and also some political relationships with the guys over in Pontiac who were doing the Raleigh studios where the Oz film was shot. And, you know, honestly, because 3 of the top donators to the governor's first campaign were very tied to that studio. Not to mention the fact that the Oakland Retirement Fund also is invested in that studio. So we got a big political hoo-ha here. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people upset if the industry doesn't continue, but...
Let's not forget about Representative Wayne Schmidt, who also made a lot of noise.
Well, yeah, we'll get to Wayne. All right, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm going to speak a little over generally because there's people like Rich who are counterpoint what I'm about to say. But we almost immediately quickly became addicted to the incentive. And we kind of stopped ourselves. And we started to and I did this. I shut down when it went away for like 9 months and it was like, it's just dead. And I think that a weakness that we have is that we are so anxious for this to happen that we see one hurdle happen and we just kind of lose our minds. And when we maybe should be focusing more on that is one aspect of this, reaching out to Hollywood is one aspect of this, making our own productions is one aspect of this. So I don't know how to put that. Maybe that we need to kind of continually be multifaceted thinkers, and that we don't answer to anybody. There's just opportunities that come and go, and we need to capitalize on the ones they have. And again, maybe that's just me, because I know I did that. But
Well, no,
No, that that came up at the Film Fest panel discussions last year. Rich spoke eloquently in the same way. It's like, it's not panacea.
Yeah, this is way bigger than just incentives. When you think about building an industry, listen, the only reason we had an incentive is to build an industry.
Yeah.
So the way it's working, which is just to give money to Hollywood and a few lucky Michigan filmmakers, does not build an industry. That's what this conversation is about. And so, yeah, it's huger.
How does this
That's
support
a word.
indigenous, the indigenous film community, indigenous?
How does what
sort of
support
aesthetic?
The incentive.
Yeah.
There's nothing written into the law that says indigenous, right? Is that something we should look for?
Well,
To,
I don't know that it says indigenous, but if you look at the intent, and you know, maybe this is something you could Google right now, is
Yep.
find the legislation, because the justification for it is that it will build an industry here. No legislator said, you know what's a great idea, let's just give some money and have people come. I mean, that's the reason why it failed the first time.
What am I Googling specifically?
You can look for the motion media, is it motion media, Rich? I think it's motion media incentive
Uh-huh.
legislation. See if you can find it.
I
Probably on the film
heard from an
office
accountant, a week ago that it was, you know, and I can't pull the numbers out of my head, but it was very much like this percentage for in-state workers, this percentage for in-state businesses. So as far as I know, like, you know, we're not, the payout is for in-state spending.
Oh, yes, the
Is that, I mean,
producers,
is that different than what you guys are asking about? or-
producers only get the money as a rebate or a grant once they can prove that they have spent the money here, that they promised. In other words, let's say you have a, you know, $100,000 budget, which is what you need to qualify. So if you hire Michigan workers, you get a 30%, is it 30 or 27?
32%.
right there, Bob.
32?
Okay.
Yeah. And so you get a check written out. Doesn't mean you have to, you know, negotiate and have somebody buy your tax credit and whatnot. The state will give you a check for that amount if you hire Michigan workers and can prove it. Same thing if you spend money buying Michigan goods or services. That's where the incentive is supposed to build local talent and generate local business. So the only problem that we've got with that is that that was the plan we had the first time around. And it went away. So you want to ask, okay, if that's the theory, and that's how it's supposed to work, are we going to continue with this same plan and see what happens in 2 years? Or how do we really step maybe outside of that plan and maybe not be so dependent on incentives to create our industry? But, so let's get back to this. Is there any other weakness you want to post up here? Yeah,
Well, the lack of infrastructure, we have no sound stages here.
okay, no sound stages.
I would argue that nobody's going to come here from Hollywood to go into a black box.
Well, but if they have a schedule that has mostly locations that are, that have mostly locations that are, that Michigan can offer up, that are perfect, and they need a week in a soundstage.
I agree with you. I've
They're
given
going
this
to
a
do
lot
it
of
here
thought.
as opposed to go back to LA or Chicago, Detroit.
I've given this a ton of thought over the years, decades, and I came close a couple of times to doing this. And here's what actually happens. And it happened on a year in Maury. They rented a building, a warehouse out on Cass that came, Bill was there, a bunch of us were there, and it had, what were there, 20 offices in that place? And a 6,000 square foot warehouse in the back. And they got the thing for like $6,500 for 3 months or something like that. That was great. If you were to, I've done this math, if you build a real soundstage, now they know that's not a real soundstage. They know that. But for $6,500, they could get it for 3 months because it was available.
Right.
If you actually went to the trouble and expense to build a real soundstage, you're going to be into it for $2 million. Your mortgage payment's going to be $6,000 a month.
High.
And the last time a film was here that needed a soundstage was that one, and that was 3 years ago.
Absolutely. It's
So
not
unless you just,
sustainable now.
unless you have, it's unsustainable. And so, and they were not going to hire, you couldn't charge them to make any money. They will never pay it.
No.
They'll just go up to Cass Road and find another warehouse.
Except the warehouses are all going now because other businesses are coming to
Well,
Traverse City
and
and
that's
snatching
a
up
risk
all
they
the
take, yeah,
warehouses.
that's true, of course. But
Okay, how are we doing on time, by the way?
Get all the time in the world.
We do.
I would love that, so.
I know, we're supposed to be out of here at 8, so.
It'd be an RV.
All right, so let's move along. The opportunities, a couple of you have already kind of kicked this off. Can you refresh the memory here? What was the opportunity?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said that, how much are we utilizing the resources that are here to create an industry that's sustainable
Okay.
here, what was the word that you used? An indigenous film industry, versus how much are we courting an established industry from somewhere else to come here and utilize our resources?
Okay.
We want Michigan.
And then my other question was, are we really just talking about big budget narrative Hollywood films, or are we including other genres, or and other, are we talking about independent films, or are we talking about documentary?
Well, I think that's up to you. I mean, it certainly isn't up to me.
So maybe an opportunity is that we can provide those varying services
across
the board.
Okay, so you have a variety of skills here.
You know, it seems to me a lot of us have to not specialize in one thing, but we have to do a lot.
Yeah.
We have to wear many hats because our budgets are structured. So that's an opportunity in a sense, because we're used to that perhaps. But it is a weakness as well, because you can't come here and find someone that's, I mean, it's rare to find a real specialist in one.
Okay.
Because we're a destination for so many reasons, we could build, and we've talked about this as a group or individuals, we could be a destination, i.e. a main workshop, okay, where you have professionals who are here, who host, and that begins to build not only infrastructure, but awareness on so many levels, because those professionals who come here for a week, 10 days,
To do specialty workshops.
to do specialty workshops,
AC
then go off to back to their world, and they remember and they know, and that, to me, that's sort of the incubator part of this, is that we need to look at this as a mecca of education in the industry. Because we're a destination, because it's a great place to party. Traverse City knows how to party. Okay? There's not, every weekend there's 4 fests, just make your choice. I mean, this weekend there's like, and we have locales that would be willing to host those things, and institutions, the community college, Interlochen, the film festival itself, right?
You guys are like Pleasure Island.
Yeah, right. And so who wouldn't want to come here as a professional to be immersed into a 4-day documentary program, or a, working with talent program, whatever
And
it
if you really
is.
yourself as a destination, you can get people to teach those workshops. That
Right.
people are going to travel from
Right.
far places.
So I think that's a real opportunity here.
So you're talking about attracting experts to come here because...
Now, we have experts here. We can still attract other experts to come here and teach.
Oh, okay.
But to make this a destination for industry folk to learn more. I mean, it's continuing ed. We're talking about continuing ed.
I don't feel like we have experts here. I feel like we have really ingenious generalists.
You may have local expertise, even if it's not...
You have writers, you have musicians.
Joe, maybe not everybody knows what the main workshops are. Maybe you should just
Yeah,
briefly.
the main workshops, I mean, Andrea, you've taught.
I taught a high school documentary class.
Right, so it's a place where a professional goes for an immersion program anywhere from 4 days to 10 days. You live on campus, if you will, in your house with 8 or 10 other professionals, and that's what you do 24/7 for that amount of time. And you pay big money to do that.
But you're at a really beautiful place in the ocean.
Yeah.
And you eat and drink really well.
Clover?
And why would you do that
Let's throw
here?
some other opportunities up
Clover?
here.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
What else?
Hi,
Yes.
Deb, Clover here. An opportunity, I think, that, because we're talking about a lack of sort of a clearinghouse for information for what our inventory is, who's here, who can do what. Going to school on Grand Rapids in the West Michigan Film Office, which is attached to its tourism association. They work hand in hand, they're in the same office. Rick takes off one hat, puts on another, takes off one hat, puts on another. We've got a really strong tourism office, and we have all of these people. We've got an incredibly thriving business community. And is there an opportunity to connect the people who are good at what they do in networking and getting the word out about Traverse City in different ways, and hooking them up with, if you will, a Traverse City film office, that it's attached to the tourism office? Even if it's just a part-time clearinghouse of information, so that, who do you call in Traverse City? Oh, well, the tourist office has a film office in it. And maybe that's just a part-time person who has a database of all of us in it, but there's some branding that starts going on. There's a logo that gets put on, you know, and the chamber, we've got an incredibly active chamber that is so committed to making people work and looking at other opportunities, keeping people busy.
It's the entrepreneurial spirit.
Exactly, and here we're a room full of entrepreneurs craving a way to connect and work, and we already have the opportunity to hook up with other like-minded people in other industries and networking possibilities here.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity. Yeah.
Well, and there's some things that are double-edged sword. Our seasonality can be a weakness, but in some ways it can also be a strength, because we have this tremendous infrastructure to support this influx of summer visitors, which is largely vacant and in want of business in the winter months. You know, as an example, and it goes to what you were saying, back in the heady days of car commercials, RU Productions, I used to do a lot of location managing and scouting for them. We had some lean winters in terms of perfect snow for winter four-wheel drive commercials. And it goes, man, we love the Traverse City area. We don't want to go to UP to shoot this. You know, what can you do? Can you make snow? And that's what got, and then I was like, yeah, I come to think of it, there's a ski resort that's only open 3 days a week. So we had a great deal worked out with the Homestead, where they had a snowmaker machines and a groomer and condos all empty. So there is a whole sort of hollow infrastructure that is available if winter is appropriate for a project, whereby we can really make some cost-effective proposals.
I think along with that, the national park on that area is empty in the winter, and I don't know if anyone's ever been on the dunes in the middle of the winter, but it's gorgeous and it's amazing. And I think that's a huge opportunity that no one's, probably a lot of people are like, where is this?
Maybe you need to get Pure Michigan up here and start promoting it that way too. Okay, yes.
Russian tundra.
Along the lines of entrepreneurship, is an infinite amount of opportunities to create your own niche in a weird sort of way.
Okay. So, so niche creation is a definite opportunity.
Yeah.
Services for that niche.
And maybe the old saying, big fish in a small pond, or that
Okay.
kind of stuff. I mean, we entertain each other here.
Okay. Any other things in terms of opportunity that you want to put up here?
I think a little bit towards what you were speaking to. I mean, because we have to be so diverse to make a living up here, as an example on Year and Mooring, Rich was helping to get boats for their shoot, but then they needed a diver, and Rich was like, I can dive, and
Yes.
then they needed a set medic, and it's like, well, I got an EMT license, so. I think, you know, I think they get a lot of extra value for the same buck, because we do have a diverse skill set.
We need another, I mean, maybe just playing off that for a second, maybe one of the opportunities we have is if we could actually tell some of those stories, like you just told, and have them out where people can get at them. It's like, wow, Michigan, look at that. You know, they had these people come on the set and they could do all these other things. How many places are like that? Tell that
Let's
story.
move on because.
I got one that I just have to say.
Oh, and there was someone back here too.
There's no real unions up here slowing things down.
Yeah.
And I love unions, you know, but there's also no, you can go shoot on the street without the cops actually knowing to stop you, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm a member of a union, so I'm you know, I'm not saying that debate. I'm just saying that it's the Wild West here, and that's an opportunity.
On the note of obviously the origination of all this, the incentive, I know, I was just listening to a whole thing the other day about how almost every state now has film incentives to try to bring films there, have the film people won't go places without them. And I was wondering if there might be an opportunity here, in some respect, to have somebody that could actually help filmmakers come up with funding, whether it's grant writing, whether
Oh my
it's,
God.
you know, finding money anywhere. I think that could be an opportunity and something that could actually incentivize filmmakers to at least get in touch with us here in Traverse City, is that they know we're going to help them get funding for their project, and that might incentivize them.
I'm going to put that under the threat capacity or category, because without investors, you are going to have a very difficult time in generating projects of any sort. So if you have a way to organize and find investors, that's probably a very valuable thing. Yes.
All right, so I got one more opportunity, and that is, you know, that we might be perceived outside of the state as unreliable because we put incentives in, we took them out, we put them back in again, looking like we're sort of very unpredictable. But one of the ways that we might restore confidence is if the indigenous film people came together and said to the legislature, this is how it's going to be, we want this to change, that actually they could see that the incentives weren't just this idea to build an industry, that there really was an industry and they were driving the incentives. That might actually make a difference outside of the state for people looking at us.
Let's put that under relationships with legislators, if you, that's an opportunity, for sure. Let's see if we can wrap up here with things that you consider a threat to the future of the film industry, whether it's indigenous or whatever. What are some of the threats? Yes?
Rick Snyder, that's all I have to say.
Richie.
Okay, what else? Yes?
Big box mentality.
Pardon me?
Big box mentality.
Big bucks?
Big box.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
mean, you see like a box store or something diluting us.
Okay. You mean that there's an emphasis on bringing in things like Walmart and whatnot rather than...
Yeah, like, well, maybe an emphasis on becoming something that we aren't, I mean, instead of looking at what we have.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the buy local thing, the
Yeah.
anti-buy local.
Yeah.
Okay. Build on what you have.
Yeah.
Being pessimistic, I think, is a threat. We have to get fired up.
Well, that's a very pithy comment right there, Mr. Keller.
Yeah, that's on Mr. Pitt, they call me.
I would agree. Pessimism is a very dangerous thing. What else? Yes?
I would say that being as a recent college grad, we don't know enough about what you can do in the film industry in Michigan. Everyone thinks that once I graduate, I have to leave because there's nothing here. There's not enough knowledge for them about what's in Michigan.
Where are the opportunities? Where's the infrastructure?
How can I stay here?
So you think like a threat would be everybody back to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
Other states with incentives.
Other states with incentives.
Other countries.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Winter.
Winter?
I think that's a
Well, there's no doubt. It can be good news and bad news.
Yeah, that's true.
What else?
Along those lines, inconsistent weather up here, it changes very quickly often, especially spring and fall.
Okay. Especially with climate change, we have no idea. Yeah.
I hate to throw this out as a generality, I don't know how to categorize it, I completely agree. And whether that's a big...
Greed, is that?
Greed, like, yeah, like whether that's maybe somebody who wants to get all the money for their studio, or me who wants to be the only cinematographer who's hired in Traverse City,
Right.
or whatever.
It's a
maybe
lack of
maybe
collaboration or willingness to
maybe
share.
maybe desperation is a better...
Well, no, it's because there's so little work to go around that
Yeah.
people are repossessing about the work that is available.
Yeah.
But there's a word for that that's counterproductive. You know, that idea of there's only so much, and I've got to make sure I don't tell Jeff about what I just heard.
Right.
You know.
Territorial.
Yeah, maybe territorialism or
Well, see, you know,
poverty mentality.
Turned independent filmmaker, and you know, the commercial fishermen that used to, you know, predominate every harbor along here had a period beginning in the 60s with a tremendous amount of threats to their industry and their lifeway. But they were fiercely independent people. They liked working alone. They never really collaborated or got together, and they couldn't organize in time to save themselves.
Yes. That's a really good example. And I think that's, that's the one advantage we have now is that we live in a much more communicative and perceptive culture. I mean, people understand a lot about what has led to past screw-ups. And we don't really want to repeat them. We're just trying to figure out, okay, how do we not? Are there other threats?
Cuts in funding and
Cuts in
support
funding,
of
yeah.
the arts, I mean, specifically, whether that's through the educational aspect or just community aspect.
Yeah, even in public schools, when you're getting it,
So you don't have a funnel of people who are seeing this as important.
Well, and you're touching on something that's even bigger, which is Michigan's reputation.
Right.
Not just this region.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what kind of
That's
schools
the
do you
comment
have?
about everybody thinks we're Flint, the whole state.
Yeah, yeah.
Another problem.
So let's put that image
Guilty by association.
of Flint up here. Yes.
I don't know if it's a threat per se, but one of the things that's vital with a vibrant film community is having young people. And when they graduate from high school or college, they're out of here, most of them. And so, if they do hang around, it's like how really on the ball are they? Because, there's only minimum wage jobs here for young kids.
I don't know, I think with that though, people want to stay here.
Oh, they
I mean, when
want
I
to.
graduated,
They
I knew
want
I
to,
had to
but there's no
leave,
work.
but I wanted to be here.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
But-
There's a whole generation of 30-some filmmakers that are all returning after having gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 40.
I came back because of the film incentive, and it's now been 3 years, and we're considering leaving because
Sure.
we can't sustain a life here.
Yeah.
The
Don't
other
want to.
negative,
We want to be here, like
yeah.
Justin said, we want to be here.
We'll give you a project.
Yeah, the other, we talked about the regional airport we had here.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic airport, we use it all the time, but it's really a regional airport, and what it means is you've got to connect somewhere else. The advantage Grand Rapids has, or Detroit has, is you can get from LA to Grand Rapids directly, 4 hours. You can get from LA to Detroit, bam. You've got to come up here, it's like, oh my God, we all do it, we love it, because we love being here, but when you're a producer in LA, it's like, yeah, what, Yeah, if you're a producer in LA,
Take a
you go to Lake Tahoe. Yeah, that's exactly right,
Yeah.
So that's a weakness, and it's nothing we can do about it, but
Well, maybe, the infrastructure eventually could turn that around. Should we provide the need for direct
Yeah,
flights?
well, perhaps.
There's a direct Newark flight now.
yeah, exactly, sometimes there is that.
Is there a direct end?
This week.
Anybody coming from Newark?
All six.
Okay. Last minute things you want to put on these lists. Anything else you want to go back and add? Something that's occurred to you?
I can't see our entire list because somebody had tapped into the in-house resources for lighting design, but, so I don't know, Rich, did you mention, technology has been it's been more of a threat to you because you've got a brick and mortar editing suite, and like you say, now people can sit on a toilet with a laptop and edit a film. So I think technology is another one of those double-edged swords where, on the one hand, it's more affordable to get into the industry right now. So more people up here can participate in it, but it also means that we have to stay sharp on what's current.
Okay, well, I look at that as an opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know if
It's
that's
like-
responsible to call that a threat, because while it sucks that it can break down people who've been not doing it on their own, like Rich, and who I love dearly, it is the thing that connects us, that lets people know that we're here, that it's the thing we're gonna use to show people what we have. It's made filmmaking more affordable where we can teach ourselves to do it. I wonder, I feel hesitant, right? It makes me nervous to say that that's a threat in any way, unless we're afraid of it.
It's tough in the sense that it's one thing, everybody's, going to know what I'm about to say here. It's one thing to have Final Cut or Premiere, and it's another thing to have an actual workflow that can get you through a major project. reliably. And that's something that's, again, speaking to Bill's point, you know, a lot of people can call themselves editors or whatever, but unless you really have workflow and you know what you're doing, you're a liability to a project. Even if you have, you know, somebody just bought you a iMac,
Well, and that
you know,
ties into
whatever.
the education
All those
stuff
people.
that we touched on a little bit earlier. I mean, that stuff's constantly changing as well. And so,
Yeah.
you know, to be able to keep up with the technology and, you know, to allow your workflow to adapt to that technology.
Well, there's no seal of approval. I mean, I know that I could hire Andrea to do something because I know her, but it doesn't tell me that she has certification. There's this lack of certification, if you will, right?
Here's the thing about all that stuff, I think, and Jed brings up a good point, but envelops the whole thing, is that we still have to look at all of this from a producer in LA's point of view, if that's what we're going for. And there is no way, it's God's green earth, they're gonna have us, they don't give a good rat's ass what camera we have.
Yep.
And they don't give a good shit what we have here. And when it comes to editing, cameras, any of that. They wanna know how well do we know this community? Do we know where we can get carpenters? Where we can get painters? Where we can get maybe some assistant makeup people, some assistant sound people? But guaranteed, and Bill, I'm sure would stand behind me on this, is that they're going to bring their keys in for sure.
Oh, sure.
And all the gear is going to come from Fletcher at the closest. And he's got an office at the studio in Pontiac now, but the cameras don't mean anything anymore. We're never going to compete on that level.
Yeah.
So we got to get, that's kind of a local arrogance that we might have, that we think we need to buy the latest DSLR because, whoa, that's, they use that stuff for doorstops. They shoot with them out of the sky with shotguns. They don't care. They just don't care. So we have to, overriding all this is remember that it's the producer in LA, if that's what we're talking about. We got to look at it from their point of view.
Well, okay.
Well, as an opportunity, I think that maybe, do we have to look at it from their point of view? I mean, is there any self-sustaining, you know, production value that can come out of Traverse City naturally?
Right.
That,
Well, having said what I just said, when I make a film, I dig knowing who's got what, okay? But they don't, but I do.
And how much are we looking at creating cool stuff out of the resources we have here, the talent we have here, the creatives that we have here, and how much are we looking to trying to cater to that outside? I mean, it seems like it's ideally one is supporting the other to some extent, but I think they're equally important.
I mean, I'd much rather see a group out of here produce
Please,
something on iTunes.
before we get
than-
broken down into all of these little individual conversations here, let's big picture it. Because all of the things that you've identified in terms of strengths, weaknesses, and so on, you now want to start thinking about the bottom line, which I think you guys have segued us into very well. The things that you know that you can deal with immediately. If you walked out of this meeting tonight, what would be the things that you know that you can immediately take some action on that would make a difference? That might, whether we have incentives or not, begin developing some self-sustainability here. And let's go with, you know.
We could start with creating a pool where we capture everything that we do have. Who's starting some organization, who's starting some business, who's trying, I mean, to connect what we do have. To basically capture everything into one spot before we make decisions about what we don't have. And I'll end on.
All right, so connect
Dan's
what's
gonna
going
put that
on
together.
currently.
Oh yeah, I'm on it.
Okay.
No, wait, I lied.
I agree with that. I mean, I work for a company that we're producing 52 to 104 videos a year, and we're always looking for people, and it's hard to find, which is like sad that, you know, you do a Google search and all you find is Rich. And it's like, can't afford him.
Well,
All right, so if.
Work for beer, man.
So you have some person already, Dan Kelly, who has said, okay, I am willing.
I'm not.
You're not? I
No,
thought that's what
I'm
you
not.
said.
No, I'm lying. I think the thing I want to say about that is we need to all do that. You can't just assign it to somebody. Even somebody who says they want to do it, don't believe them. Everybody in this room needs to figure out a way to come together. It's not, I mean, I'm just trying to pull the freaking cord on the lawnmower so I can step back.
Well, and that's the thing, I mean, nobody really wants to take on a full-time job of communicating with everybody in the district. Now, I will tell you that there are some other options. The West Michigan Film Video Alliance, which some of you may have heard of.
Oh, God, get that off.
Holy crap.
Who's on this page? Who's here?
What is this?
This is the Meet Your Makers page. Who's actually signed up for this page? Who's actually put their picture on this page? Yeah.
Joe must have been first.
Anyway.
And you have,
No, what kind of order is that in? Whatever order you want.
You're like the face man.
Am I good?
How do I get at the top?
Bathing suit version is coming this spring.
I agree with your comment completely. I don't know how it gets pulled off, but developing a resource directory of an honest
Yep.
appraisal of who's out there and what they're interested in.
And it needs to be a go-to thing, kind of like Google. We go to Google to search. It needs to be like one place instead of like many places.
Well, those things do exist, they're just not regionally specific.
well, and they may very easily, I think.
Well, everybody used to use the Michigan Film Commission one, whatever the database was, that was originally a book you printed every year, right? That was the one people kept on the shelf and got publicized. Is that still, I mean, I don't even, is that
Yes,
still around?
that is still around.
It's like
Well,
printed?
no, not
On
the
paper?
printed version.
No,
Used to be.
I don't use that.
Online, it is still around.
Yeah, okay.
You have to pigeonhole yourself, though. I think you're allowed maybe two spots. So for
Right.
somebody like me that can support the equipment, that the location management, scouting, RIP, electric, I mean, it's like, again, it doesn't fit the Northern Michigan filmmaker MO, which is, you know, we can do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We're not
I don't
afraid
think
of
we're going to
working
solve
hours.
this tonight, but what I want to say is that I think you have identified something that
Yeah.
needs to be done.
For sure.
Now, how it's going to get done, that is going to take probably another meeting and brainstorming to actually go, okay, how could we do it? You've identified some resources. The Chamber of Commerce, your CVB, and Brad Van Donelen, people who definitely are interested in supporting the industry here and may be able to figure out how to assist you with resource allotment. They certainly have, because one of the big things you need to deal with is who answers the phone here. If a producer wants to come here, who do they call? And how do you figure out how they direct people to you? So you want, you know, these kinds of alliances are the things that you need to start thinking about, in my humble opinion. So there are databases that already exist. The Alliance is one of them. The MFO is another. You can use those resources, and you should familiarize yourself so you actually know what is out there. This is just my little wrap-up soapbox thing. Dan is not a full-time communicator for you, but he has a site.
Yep.
That people can, I mean, maybe you can add something that helps people figure out.
Yeah, I mean, even just getting, I know it sounds simple, but just getting your picture and your name up there so we know who
Yeah, so
we
you
are.
know.
That's
You know.
the day to start. Yeah.
Now, the other thing I want to mention to you before I go, and I passed this little handout to you. And this is, in my judgment, where the rubber meets the road. And that is your connection with the legislature. Now, Dan has already introduced you to his experience, which was, I thought, fairly hilariously recounted and so cleverly illustrated. It was really cool. As he pointed out, our legislators do not know anything about this industry. They don't even know there is one. They basically know that they gave us some money. And the way that they look at it is when we tightened up those loopholes and we ended corruption. And that's kind of where it ends for them. That's the only understanding they have. If you ask them, you know, how this is going to build the industry, they don't know. Dan, you want to recount that conversation you had?
Well, the two people that I talked to, Ray Franz was like, you know, hey, tell me about where's the film industry on your radar? And he was like, well, we're about supporting business in Michigan, and film is another business in Michigan, and we want to support it. But, you know, obviously this incentive thing was completely overblown and way out of hand, and we tightened that up, and now it's, you know, whatever. Well, what about how do we measure success? And he's like, well, what do you mean? Well, how do we measure? How do we know whether it's going to work or not? Shouldn't we have something like Pure Michigan? Shouldn't we have some metrics? Hey, that's a really good idea. and so they don't even expect, my conspiratorial opinion is that they don't either want or expect success, because if they did, they'd have metrics in place. How do you give money to something and not have a measurement of whether it's going to work or not? So anyway, when I talked to Howard about this, Senator Howard, he was like, well, metrics, not my job. Well, whose job is it? Aren't you in control of the people whose job it is? Well, yeah, but they don't always do what you ask them to do. Well, how do we get them to do what you ask? Well, we need not just this district that I represent, but all the districts and all the senators, and you might want to talk to the leader of the Republican party. Well, I'm sorry, I'm gapping his name.
Randy Richardville?
You might want to talk to Randy Richardville to build that strategy. And like, oh, okay. But at the end, I got him to commit to saying that, yes, if you want to build metrics, I will help you do that. I will light a fire under the people whose job it is to do the metrics. So what it basically means is we need to get out there and force and talk to all our legislators and say, hello, we're now on your radar and we're not going away.
Okay, now again, that probably is the least interesting thing you would ever want to do, right? Is go talk to your legislator. It's like, give me a break. But one of the things that could also show up on Dan's site would be the times when your legislators actually come back to your town and sit in a restaurant locally, and you just pop in there for 10 minutes. And you come in, as a group.
Yep.
And there's like 5 of you, that would blow their mind. And I've been to these things where, there are people sitting at tables waiting for their opportunity to talk, and you get like 10 minutes and you sit down and you say, hi, I'm one of your constituents. And guess what? I want to do the film industry thing, whatever your particular thing is. And they will be amazed. I think, wasn't it your legislator who was a former meat packer?
Yeah, Ray Franz that owns a grocery store. I'm a meat packer. I don't know anything about what you need, but if you help me to understand what you need, I'll fight for you, basically is what he said.
Yeah. So, what you have to understand is that these guys come, and some women, from all these little jobs. They're chiropractors, or they're pharmacists, or they're whatever, but they are not film people. And they have no clue that any of you exist. They are playing politics because that's their game, and they don't know your game. So you just have to, I urge Dan, publish sometimes that your legislator's coming to town, and then go see him. You don't have to write any letters or anything, just go and have breakfast, and then pop in for 10 minutes.
Howard's here from Friday to Sunday, and Ray Franz is here on the weekends as well, and he's basically in his office all weekend. You can go down and see him.
Did you have a comment, Rich?
Just from what I'm hearing, you were talking about like an action point for something, and I think that's really an excellent question. And it sounds like, from what I've been hearing, is that there's really a couple of arenas that all of us want to play in. And some of us want to play in both, the commercial, the local, the industrial, the educational, the stuff that we actually, all of us could really benefit from. And honestly, we all make a living at that stuff. And then there's the Hollywood thing, where it's probably a smaller crowd that would get a chance at it. But there is an overlap.
Sure.
But I think it sounds like what would be really helpful immediately is to go back to this database where we all know who's around. I know most of you folks, and I kind of know what you like to do. But those sorts of opportunities on the commercial, corporate, educational level have a much better shot at helping. I've worked with Bill, I've worked with all you guys, a lot of them, on different things, because we're all sort of in this together, and it works out. And so that's more realistic. The Hollywood thing, which is this bigger thing, is a much bigger nut to crack.
Yeah.
Well, and again, you want to think about your promotional opportunities, and we did mention the chamber and so on. The thing is, and let me just make sure that's, you're promoting yourselves. The reason I passed this out, this little sheet, is because the people who are really in charge of promoting you and the entire film industry are the people at the MEDC. How many of you have heard of the MEDC? Michigan Economic Development Corps. Okay. Please check out the Michigan, in fact, why don't you see if we can get that site up, the Michigan Economic Development Corps. Now, what is fascinating about this is that this agency was created to bring industry here. They go overseas and they recruit companies to come to Michigan. They go to all the other states and try to steal their business and incentivize them to come to Michigan. Industries such as manufacturing, energy, homeland security, medical and health technology, high-tech digital. Where is film in this? Nowhere. Nowhere. And yet, the legislature has given us $58 million. But we're not on their radar. So on the back of this little handout, Mark and I sat down and we said, okay, what are the things that MEDC should be doing if we were going to be treated like any other industry? And we came up with 10 things, just looking at their website, that they do for other industries that they don't do for us. The first thing is to promote us. If you will, can you find it?
Yeah, I'm here. MEDC.
Yeah, if you look at, look at the quick links there, there's a thing, the list of the industries.
Projects, boards, and
Yeah, maybe MEDC projects.
projects, okay. Lead by country or legislative districts. Looks like this might not be actually working on it. Lead by county or legislative district. Click on the map.
Yeah, over here.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at projects, and drop that thing down, go to the arrow on the right.
I'm waiting. It's got no print. All deaf. Oh, it's broken.
Well, okay, we'll wait for that.
Go ahead.
The thing is, there's not even a camera on that website. There is nothing to indicate that the state has given this money to encourage producers and other investors to come here. Number two is recruit businesses from outside the state, just as they would any other. They went to Dubai recently and took a bunch of small business people who make medical technology devices, whatever that is, I have no idea. But they go to Dubai to encourage all of these wealthy Arab companies to buy these products and furthermore come here and invest in them. How many industries are, I mean, let's just think if we had sound stages where people who are shooting film in Korea and whatnot are here using our facilities. Why not? We have far better connections to Hollywood and training opportunities than they do in those countries. You know, so why are we not doing that? Provide the same economic impact tracking systems that they use to track the impact of pure Michigan. Why don't they do the same thing for us? Direct all economic development offices, particularly our regional offices, such as the Right Place on the west coast here, and there's another company on the east side. We are not on their radar either. So you can't even go to a local, how many of you have heard of Right Place in Grand Rapids? Economic development. Okay. Ever since the incentives came to Michigan, we have been asking for help from these economic planners. Count us in on your development plans. No way. They won't do it. Why not? Because the MEDC doesn't do it. The MEDC doesn't do it. Why should we do it? So I invite you to take a look at this. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but probably the thing that ticks me off the most is that if you go to the MEDC and you want to know how to get a manufacturing incentive here in Michigan, they will actually teach you how to do that. They'll host workshops to show you how to fill out forms, to apply for the dollars that will incentivize you to come here. Have any of you ever heard of a workshop on how to apply for Michigan's film incentives? What are they looking for? There's a more complicated application process
Is
than
anybody
ever.
doing that in the state?
Pardon me?
Is anybody doing that in
No.
the state?
I just
I mean,
call-
even
I just
as an
call it-
entrepreneurial, I mean, as a commercial entity, like somebody I could go to do my social security because I don't understand how to do my disability, but you're right.
No.
So there, I mean, there's an opportunity.
Well, I will say that
Learn
there
the
were
system and
companies
game it.
who did do that, and, whether they're going to start up again is another question.
Yeah.
But the point is, why should you have to pay? The MEDC gives this for free to every other industry. Why the heck do we have to pay? So, what Dan heard when he went to his legislator was, tell me what you need. I'm saying that what we need is to be treated like every other industry and make the same requests to support us and plan for our success as an indigenous film industry the same way they do any other industry. So if your legislator says to you, what do you want from me? My answer is, please talk to Michael Finney at the MEDC and ask him how he's going to turn that $58 million you gave us into a local industry. Because so far, nobody's accountable for that. Nobody. And if we want it,
Through all this.
no, the Michigan Film Office is not responsible for building an indigenous film industry.
But aren't they documenting what's happening in the state, what its economic impacts are, and where?
Oh, this would be another fun thing. If you look up the, can you look up the dashboard for the Michigan film industry?
It's just, would it be on the Film Office website?
It's on the Film Office website, and you go to the dashboard. If you look at the dashboard, for the entirety of 2012, you have no idea what money has been spent here. It hasn't been filled in yet.
Yeah, backlog.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's supposed to be our guarantee of transparency. There's nothing there. Well, there is a list of films. It doesn't coincide with other sites where they have 15 films that were shot in 2012, and there's only 12 up there, or there were.
So all these empty spaces is what you're talking about?
That's accountability.
Wow.
There's nothing there.
Hertz per billion, LLC.
So the MFO is not going to be tracking anything in any useful way since this system was mandated. Because first of all of the films that have come through have to file all of their paperwork. So they're waiting for that paperwork to be filed, then to go through the audits, then to be certified, and then to be posted.
Now, okay, so my question is, what I heard from my legislators was that come back to us with a plan, okay? So if I'm saying, well, go talk to the guy at the MEDC and tell him to get is that the answer? And the other question I have is, again, being a bit of a conspiracy buff, isn't it possible that the MEDC people might come up with metrics that would basically screw us? Don't we have to be involved in the development of these metrics?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I say, the bottom line is, you can't do this yourselves. I mean, unless, you really, yeah. If you're going to have a tough time figuring out how you're going to communicate with each other, can you really imagine taking on economic planning for your region? I mean, it's not your job. And you don't have the expertise to do it. And you shouldn't be asked to do it. What you should be asking, in my judgment, is, why isn't somebody else doing this? Now, I think in regards to your point, Dan, one of the best things you can do is invite your legislator to come to a night like this.
Yeah.
If they saw a room full of people like you, they would probably fall over backwards. Like, oh my God, all you people are interested in film? I'm a meat packer. I didn't know that. And then you can lay this kind of stuff on them. Here's our problem. Now, ultimately, they're going to ask you, just like they did Dan, what do you want from us? So you need to have, there are certain things that you obviously can handle yourself, but you need to make the demand that they get serious about that money. Realistically, when the governor runs for office again in 2014, we're back and forth on whether he's going to do that or not, but let's say he does. What do you think his campaign position is going to be on the incentives? especially if there is absolutely no proof that it made any difference. Why would it continue?
I forget the name of the gentleman who levered the current allotment to.
Richardville?
Yeah, I mean, his name is associated with the request and the ultimate success or failure of that investment. Why isn't that individual more proactive in making sure that there's accountability and transparency? Wouldn't he be the go-to person since it's his name on the?
Well, I think the message I got was we need to galvanize many districts so that that person would actually have the political capital to go and make some demands. So our district alone, if we actually came out strongly and our senators and reps were going like, God, these guys won't shut up. You know, if that could happen in a lot of different places around the state. Basically, we need to do it here first.
You only have two people to deal with. Your representatives, I think you have two in this area. And then you, of course, have a senator from your district that you can talk to as well.
Well, we can also, I mean, I'm counting Benzie County too, because that's where I'm from, so I can go and bother those people. But that's the thing, if you're up, you know, if you're out of this district, you live out of this district, then you have a different rep and senator you need to call. So that's how we get more of these people wrapped up in our.
So, I don't know how you feel about that, but let's just take your temperature. I mean, how many of you are really, and I guess this is unfair because, you know, with on the spot, but are you willing at all to talk to your legislators?
Yep. Show of hands.
But, you know,
Okay, well,
you need to go in armed, and you know, what am I going to go see Franz and say, look, you know, and show them a blank page? I mean, that's why, again, I don't understand. Whoever introduced the legislation that levered however many millions of dollars that we theoretically have available right now,
yes.
Why isn't that person our best ally? Because his name is the one who's going to be tarnished if this kind of stuff keeps showing up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was even the suggestion, wasn't it, Dan, that we should talk to Richardville?
Yeah, that he would be the guy to put the strategy together with, even though he's not in our district, to find other filmmakers in his district and go, hey, let's you know, we'll get behind you, but go and talk to your guy and say, you know, we are hearing from all over the state, and you're the point man, let's make this happen.
Because that money isn't allocated to any given district, is it? It's the entire state, right?
Not at all. Well, let me ask you too, Dan, when you talk to Howard, is he your senator or your representative?
He's the Traverse City senator.
Okay. So senators, of course, are in close relationship with Richardville because he leads their particular group. So, you know, you're dealing with two groups here. One is the House and one is the Senate. So Richardville, if he has any influence with Howard, Howard is the guy that represents you, that, you know, those two are working together because they're in the Senate together. So Howard is your access to Richardville.
And to my read on Howard is that he would much rather not get involved with this if he doesn't have to.
Right.
And he'd like us to just go somehow bypass him, go to Monroe, where Richardville is the guy for, and deal with them.
Side of the state.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that if we talk to Howard, and enough of us talk to Howard, or we get together in a room with Howard and sit down and go, look, that might light a different kind of fire under him. I think he met me and he's like, you know, he didn't really know what to think about me. The fact that I said, oh yeah, I'm from this group, the Michigan Movie Makers, this ad hoc group. Okay, well, prove it, show me, you know.
Yeah, where's your group?
Yeah, where's your group, dude?
So constituencies are everything, yes.
This may seem like a far off, ridiculous idea, but what if we made a film, a short film, explaining it with all of us in it?
Oh my God, it's a great idea.
I mean, that way you could see all of the individuals who are there and maybe who couldn't necessarily make it or who have a 9 to 5. And then you have everything condensed in one area and you can just show them a DVD.
So in other words, it could almost be like somebody says, I'll show up with a camera and mic, and the rest of us show up and we just all day long interview. Okay, here's what I think, blah, 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 blah.
Well, or
like
how
that?
it impacted our lives.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I lived for a year without a second job just off the film incentive. I could talk about that.
Absolutely.
Because that's a big argument, is the fact that it was, they're temporary jobs. And, I mean, if I can sustain myself for a year as an actress, I mean, everyone else, I'm sure, has their own story about how they sustain themselves through the film incentive.
Well, and that's the kind of thing that they never hear. You have to understand too that the only thing they do hear is what the governor says or other politicians say. They don't talk to you, so they don't know. They don't know your story. So I just really think, the bottom line, I'm coming to these different communities and I'm saying, in my judgment again, I'm not the oracle, but these incentives diminish through 2015. So that's 2 years from now. That means we will have flatlined on a couple of the incentives. I think that you will still have an incentive for hiring Michigan people, but you should be knowledgeable about that. What is the game for your industry? What are they projecting for you? And they're gone by 2017. So if there is no plan in place to have an indigenous industry by 2017, it's all over anyway.
This is an annoying thing to do, but, so we had scheduled an idea for this meeting, which is basically going to be a full day thing. We're just going to get everybody together and make a movie in one day. Everybody bring a camera, bring computers, we'll just cut, and we'll shoot it and cut and edit it right here, and we'll show it at the end of the night. And it occurs to me that what we could do, if we want to make this painless and all, not trying to sign it to somebody, is just say March or May, maybe March would be good. We spend a day where we just come together and we shoot what Jamie's talking about. We could bring your freaking camera, bring your whatever, and a bunch of computers, and we'll cut it, shoot it and cut it in one day. I don't want to be responsible for organizing that. I'm just putting it up.
Well, is Howard in this, is he Traverse City?
Yeah, he's here every weekend. Every weekend. He'll come to the omelet shop and hang out in the omelet shop with you.
Seems to me you have two good ideas, but the one you don't want to lose momentum on is the legislator.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be a movie to basically bring to them or send to them and say, we don't have time to, everybody meet with you at the omelet shop, but this is for you, dear Senator, David Merritt.
Setting up a Skype session where we would
That's
all
true
meet
too.
here and
Another
have a conversation.
Another thing that actually, it's one thing to kind of be creative and create something like this, but the thing that speaks to legislators are facts and figures.
Yes.
And if you say, okay, here we are, we're 74 people that live in this region, and we generate this much business per year, and we hire this many people, and we create this much economic activity, that's what they care about.
That's very true. Again, if you're willing to generate your own little fact sheet about your business or what you've made from your business, obviously you don't want to give away everything, but you can ballpark some stuff.
But if we could create some kind of, I think we need to make a database of who's here.
Yep.
And we can't rely on the government. Clover, I would have said it, but she's gone, but I think it's a great idea to say, hey, the economic development people here, screw them. It's us. Nobody cares about us except us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We want to be here. Even if the incentive goes away, we want to live here. And we want to make a living here.
Yeah.
If we're going to do that, we have to band together. We've got to hire each other. We've got to keep each other fed until a real job comes in. Or we got to create real jobs and then hire our local people.
Yes, but you need a plan to do that.
We need a plan to do that. We have to do that by getting together because you know what? Frankly, this is my baby little tiny rant. I'm so disappointed and bummed out. And like you said, you were thinking about leaving. I moved back here 4 years ago in part because the incentive was here. It's I can actually work here. I want to live here my whole life. I'm going to come back, so I did. I moved my family all the way across the country and we're here. And now we're listening to the snowfall, it's where's the work?
Right.
You know what? The work can happen.
It can happen, but I urge you to not miss the opportunity of having a $58 million commitment that you should be benefiting from.
I agree, but you know what? At the same time, they said it was $50 million this year. It cut back to $25 million.
Well, not
yet.
What?
Well,
it's not been approved
that's what they're
yet.
talking about. But you know what? I'm so fed up with this
And I don't blame you.
on-again, off-again thing, that I have to focus on making a living.
Yes, you
know?
do. But I think it's, I don't want to get into a debate about what most effective actions you take. But even if the incentive goes away, it is going to be to your benefit to have your legislators know that you want to do this work. Because they don't have any idea that you even exist. So no matter what, I think it's worth your time. And I hope that if no other takeaway comes out of this, that it's worth your time for a short meeting to just let these people know that you're here and you want them to do something for you. And I don't think that's too much to ask of the people that we have elected and who are drawing your tax-paying dollars to sit in Lansing and make up these laws that affect us all. So that has been my justification for holding you all hostage here for a couple hours, just to give you that message and, you know, to let you know these points that you have contributed will be part of a final report. You will get a copy of it. And however that helps you in generating your next steps so that you are not incentive dependent, but you are able to take advantage of whatever resource you have available to you to create an industry here that sustains itself. And, you know, kumbaya, I hope we can all pull that off. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Deb.
I look forward to coming back and hearing all the great things you're doing. So,
Nice.
all right, I'm going to break this down. You all have a chat. Dan, you have my list?
Yep, right here.
Are people really interested in trying to do the video thing?
Well,
Are we really interested in that? I mean, is there a day of the week that's good?
the thing is that we're not, if we wanted to use this meeting format as, I don't care, and there's, want to have anything scheduled for March or May.
Great organizer.
Don't believe that.
Morgan, are you volunteering to put this together?
I hate to volunteer for things,
Listen,
so
you
what I'm going to do is talk about it, and then eventually I'll get roped into it, so we can start.
I'm sorry, I just talked about it, so now sometimes I'm going to get roped into it. I took the talking about thing out of mine.
Yeah, but it'll be like a 1 or 2 week process where I slowly immerse myself into actually doing something.
The one reason about, that's to harp on this idea for one more second. What do we need to do to galvanize ourselves as a group? We need to do a project together. Clover's not here anymore, but she's like, what I miss about the industry is like go on a set with a bunch of people and they're all your best friends and family afterwards. If we're going to get a group together, we need to do a project together. One day. And that's what a great project this would be. Then we just put it out there, we send it to all our senators. So if you guys don't do something about this, we're going to come in person with torches to your offices.
We should also spend some funding to pay ourselves for it.
But anyway, do you guys agree with the idea of doing a project together? Does that sound good at all? Let's put on a show.
I'm just like throwing out a date. Is March 23rd? No, it's a bad one.
March 23rd?
Yeah, I'm just throwing out a date. So that
March 24th is the next supposed meeting of this.
Is that the next meeting?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. And we can do it.
I've got 24th as a Sunday.
It's a Sunday? Oh, 7th maybe, 27th. 27th is Wednesday, right?
I'm just thinking if weekends are better for people or weekdays. If we were going to do a 24-hour shoot
Well, then people
and
can come
have
in at any time.
Yeah, that's right, they can come in all day long. Does a weekday work for people if we were going to put something like this together? Raise your hand if it does. You can come in any time of the day and just sign up and say.
is going to be good.
There's enough notice.
Okay. 27th is what we're looking at right now because we have nothing else going on. 27th of March.
March. 24
It would
hours.
be probably at Leah, unless we want to rent this place again. This is a cool space, but it costs us money to be here, which I don't have.
Media Center's open.
What's that?
Media Center.
Yeah, the Leah. We're gonna meet at Up North Media Center for this.
So 27th at Up North Media.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Now we're working.
Let's see what happens.
What about that?
I'm gonna go back to we'll add that to the blast list. Now, you guys are